there, and welcome to Grey Muzzle Geekery for the week of July 29th, 2019, episode 25. I'm Dusty Red, and with me as always,
I'm Dusty White.
And we'll get into this week's news. Hey, aren't you glad you're alive today? I mean, you could have been washed away by giant tidal waves, or worse, smashed into tiny bits by an asteroid known as 2019 OK. Estimated to be around 200 to 400 feet wide, traveling at about 15 miles per second, the asteroid whizzed by planet Earth at a distance of 45,000 miles or 0.19 lunar orbits, with the capability of hitting with 30 times the energy of the atomic blast at Hiroshima. Fun fact, the Earth to the moon is only about 239,000 miles, so, missed it by a hair.
YOLO.
Yeet! Smash!
Newport Aquarium and Christ Hospital Health Network have joined forces. No, not to produce the next Aquaman, but to provide all babies born this week with baby shark onesies to celebrate the new widely popular Discovery Channel's Shark Week.
Baby shark doo 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 doo, baby shark doo 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 doo, Tony Stark doo 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 doo, Tony Stark.
You can send all hate mail to Grey Muzzle Geekery.
That's gonna be stuck in everybody's brain now. Yay! So Netflix has launched its newest subscription plan of $3 per month, but there's a catch. First, it's only in India, and secondly, it's only for mobile devices. And due to India's having 400 million smartphone users, Netflix is going to tap into that bank by offering a low price of $3.
I'm interested to see if they bring them stateside. So, be interesting.
Rumors saying that even if that plan doesn't come to the United States, that it still shows their flexibility and their capability of trying to boost their numbers, as they've actually not met their projections in new subscriptions.
Makes sense. With everybody else going to a streaming service.
Absolutely. So they're trying to figure out ways to be able to minimize costs. And if you're just a smartphone user,
right,
and just on the go, or use some sort of system like that, you can just spend $3 and
have everything you need.
Have, Netflix. And it's only coming in at 420. So like 420p, I think, or 4 something p. So
something reduced.
So it's much more reduced, and it's only for mobile, and you're only going to get like one access at a time, which also shows that you're not going to be able to do the whole like who is not guilty of, well, yeah, here's my Netflix password, and then you log in and you got like 17 people. And it's like, I thought Grandma was dead. I guess she's still watching Dead Like Me. Hey. And Gen Con 2019 on August 1st through the 4th, the Indiana Convention Center in Indianapolis, Indiana. The Indiana will be at Indiana Convention Center. And if you're not familiar with Gen Con, it is basically the gamer mecca. Board games, video games, and a variety of card games, and etc. will be on display and tested and played and etc. Indiana. So if you're in the Indiana area, and I don't know why you would be, you would want to go to Gen Con.
Unless you're going to Gen Con.
I think they basically pay for like the rest of Indiana.
Yeah, they do love a Gen Con.
I mean, in fairness, they did. If I'm not mistaken, Gen Con flexed its muscle when Indiana was on its big...
that it did.
On its big anti-gay kick. And Gen Con was like, if you don't knock it off, we're going to pack up and move. And Indiana's like, I'm so sorry.
I'm just kidding.
I'm kidding. I'm just being spicy.
So, unfortunately, as it does happen every so often, we do have to add to the Grey Muzzle Geekery graveyard this week. Sad day for Polka Dots and Mickey Mouse. Modern-day voice actress Russie Taylor, known notably for voicing Minnie Mouse since 1986, passed away Sunday, July 28th at the age of 75.
Oh no.
Oh. And that's this week's news.
So we'll go right into our fun topics for the week, and we'll get back to something that we kind of discussed and talked about a couple shows ago, and kind of never came back to it. And let's just call a spade for what it is. We've had a bit to drink tonight.
It's been a couple of rough couple of days.
It's been a couple of days for sure. So we're a little on the, let's deviate our norm on the Grey Muzzle Geekery and go back to a topic we have mentioned about bullshit jobs. And I don't mean that these jobs are bullshit in the sense of, hey, what you do and you're happy with what you do and do what you do is awesome. Indiana. But some of us had some jobs growing up that weren't the best.
They provided a service with being able to continue to exist and pay bills.
Or pay for whatever geeky habits we were doing.
Correct.
So do you have one out the gate that you want to do?
I will say that out the gate, probably my shortest span of a employer was Dairy Queen in the lovely one stoplight town called Rushville, Illinois.
Okay. How old were you at this?
I was briefly right out of college, my first semester in college, sorry, I should say. So I believe I was, I think, 1920.
Okay.
I was not yet of drinking age.
Okay.
So
I'm very curious you added that in there. Like, I wasn't of drinking age, but I was at the Dairy Queen.
I worked there, I think, a total of like 3 weeks. And it ended up being very interesting. I now know and still remember how to make dilly bars and how to make sure that blizzards are made so that when you do turn them upside down, they don't dump everywhere. So yeah, that was my brief excursion into the brazier treats that are Dairy Queen. What about yours?
Well, why'd you end up leaving?
I moved sadly back in with my mother.
Oh, so you're just
back
like,
into Springfield.
I got a new job. Look at me. I'm an adult. I'm working at Dairy Queen. I'm
No,
out.
I needed the job to survive. And
Fine.
then shortly there went, this is not working. I need to go back home.
Oh, okay.
I thought I could live by myself after college, and that did not work.
For me, unfortunately, mine is a very realistic Mitch Hedberg joke here of, yeah, I worked at a hot dog stand. I remember that day. It was very literally a hot dog stand near my parents' place. I was 19 or 20. Yeah, 19 I think, because I had just quit my job from FuncoLand. Which, that puts some gray hairs on my freaking face there.
Anybody
FuncoLand.
from the Chicagoland area?
Not even. It was national.
Oh, it was?
It was
wasn't
before,
down by me.
It was before GameStop.
Oh.
It was, and that's actually what bought them out, was GameStop bought out all the FuncoLands and just converted it over. But the concept was the same in terms of, hey, we're selling these games at full price and we'll sell it to you and you can bring it back and we'll give you a nickel and then turn around and sell the game at almost full price minus 2 nickels. Like, ta-da!
And people come in and still pay them.
Yeah, well, But, yeah, I worked FuncoLand first and got held up at gunpoint.
Yeah, see, you trump all of my stories with this. I want you to know.
I'll say that one in a little bit, though. But then when I quit that job, I went for this little hot dog place called Hey Buds, which is closed down. And they were like, you gotta remember, I'm from Chicago. Like, actually, Chicago.
Not the suburbs formerly known and referred to by anybody else in Chicago as Chicago?
Well, I mean, you have the Chicagoland area. You have it with it's not a Chicago-specific thing. Let's call it for what it is. You're from a major city, and then you have somebody, or you're from around a major city. You're just going to say, oh, yeah, I'm from Dallas. Like, oh, yeah, where at in Dallas? Well, I'm from this little suburb of Dallas. Or I'm in this little suburb. So Chicago's known for that as well. You're just like, oh, I'm from Chicago. Like, oh, where in Chicago? And that's where you don't want to run into an actual Chicagoan, because you're like, shit, they're gonna call my bluff. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from Chicago. Like, oh, where at? You're like, Schaumburg. Sorry, and they're just like either they'll kind of, okay, I get it, or they'll give you the whole like, you fucking poser. How dare you? How dare you stand where he stood?
Where I've seen you on the Metro or the Blue Line, and you've had that conversation with people, so I know you.
I mess around. I mean, I don't mind just because I get it. It's the understanding of it's a giant effing city, and I've made the joke before that the greater Chicagoland area pretty much extends from like Milwaukee to Madison down around. It encompasses Rockford, unfortunately. It's like Rockford's Chicago's indigestion. And then it moves to like, it kind of tries to cut around Gary. Like it'll swallow some of Valparaiso just because we like snow as well. And then depending, like parts of southwestern Michigan can be considered a greater Chicagoland area just because like, you're like, oh yeah, no, this is Michigan. We're proud of Michigan. You go to like St. Joe, like St. Joseph, in sometime in the summer, and you're gonna see like, well, yeah, there's 4 Michigan natives, and everybody else is from Chicago or Indiana.
Right. So I want to give you the counter to this because back when I first started going to Illinois State University, it was back when Facebook was still a college only.
Oh sure. We're all rocking our MySpace at the time. That was the important thing.
Exactly. Facebook was a thing you only got to use if you had a college email address.
Absolutely.
So .edu or whatever. So
how many kids do you think remember that now?
Oh.
How many people are like, wait, I need to go to college?
I needed to have a college email address.
Which I kind of wish they kept it that way because, I mean, have you seen some of the posters posting people that are posting nowadays? Like, I bet you can't even spell college. Anyway.
So back when my first semester at ISU, Facebook was brand new and it did a lot of basically like following groups or whatever. And one of them being, no, I'm from blank town and no, it's not a Chicago suburb. I had been born and raised in Springfield, Illinois. And here I was in Bloomington, Illinois, which is only about 45 minutes away. And having to explain to people, oh, where are you from? I'd say, the capital of the state. Oh, is that a Chicago suburb? No, it's not.
All right, in fairness, you're talking to people south of 80, and we've already established that.
Listen.
South of 80, here be dragons. I think our Patreon listener, Bada, has once said that I-80 is the Mason-Dixon of the Midwest. Like, south of I-80 is like the South Midwest will rise again or something. I don't know. We'll open a book one day or something. I don't know.
Listen, as the original OG import, I'm just saying, I shouldn't have to explain to people going to a state college
where the rest of
their
state is?
capital is not located in Cook County.
Good old Crook County. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I get the need to like try to explain where you're from and whatnot. I mean, every place has its thing. We all know the Michigan people who just immediately pull their hand out and be like, "So, where on the mitten are you?" Like,
so I have a story about that too, and we're tangenting hard, and I apologize now.
It's what we do.
But
you're me today.
So I used to work for. Speaking of questionable jobs, I used to work for a company that used to collect off stat and off basically credit.
You're a debt collector.
All
right.
And the headquarters of this company was in Warren, Michigan.
Let's not give out too much information.
So whatever, come at me. I don't care.
No, they're not me. I'm the one that's managing the emails, remember?
So I used to work for this company. The headquarters was in Warren, Michigan. And some of the people from that company that we worked in downtown Chicago, and some of those people that came from downtown, or that worked for the company came from other locations, aka the headquarters. And they were like originally Michigan people. And I had
like how you say Michigan people.
I had never heard.
Species.
I had never heard, and I'm 23, 24, 25 by the time I worked for this company. I had never heard the saying of where do you live? Pull out your hand and point to your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get it. And the trainer that I absolutely adore, and I'm still Facebook friends with her, but she would pull out her hand and she'd point to like, you know, left side of bottom end of her thumb. And she's like, I'm from here. And I would look at her and go, why are you pointing to your hand? And she would kind of like cock her face at me and be like, you don't understand Michigan looks like a mitten? And I was like, no, it doesn't. And then I looked at a state map and I went, oh, now I understand. Little did I know, soon I would have lots of friends in lots of areas that live in Michigan, and now understand that when you point to places on your hand, what that means. But I used to make fun of them all the time of being like, I live in Michigan, let me point on my hand.
I think it's dangerous, though, using your body like that for map points, because it's like, oh, you visited Florida? Where at in Florida? They start to drop their pants. Oh, no.
Well, I had a supervisor for some time in that company that was from the Yooper. So she'd make a hand and then like add the other hand and be like, I'm from over here.
I'm almost Canada, but
and
not quite.
she was very Canadian light. She was so sweet. She was so tiny and petite, and I loved her so much.
Especially didn't freeze or get eaten by a moose.
But yes, she was Canadian light, as the Yoopers would call it.
I've only met a handful of Yoopers, and yeah, it's just a different breed, because like they're so close to, obviously Michigan, you just go across, but they're also like very connected to Wisconsin, and there's this like, you got the mainland Michiganders that are just like, fuck Ohio. Fuck everything that Ohio has to say. Because, I mean, obviously, big college rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan.
Right.
Like, it's just, especially football, it's insane. But the rest of the sports are
pretty competitive.
They are competitive against each other. Illinois really doesn't have much in the way of sports competition. I've noticed that. Like, they're not as...
Are we talking college, or are we just going to
College.
glaze over the fact that we don't like the Red Wings?
No. I'm not talking professional sports.
Oh, okay.
Professional sports, well, Chicago's a big city, so it has a lot of professional major sports. Like, I get that. The Red Wings thing has died, unfortunately, just because...
just because they changed divisions.
Okay, so we get a different kind of nerddom here, but Seattle has been approved of getting its own hockey team in 2021. So my big philosophy or theory or, you know, my money is... Will the Chicago Blackhawks, which is currently in the Western Conference, be moved to the East, as there is now an imbalance of East and West teams?
Ooh.
So now that'll put Chicago in the Eastern time zone, for the most part. And
that's going to make so many people unhappy.
And you are now putting all original 6 teams
back in the Eastern Conference. Ooh,
so I've been wondering that, because as is with the Vegas Knights,
right?
They have like already kind of tilted it to where it's like 33 teams, but I think it's like 18 or 19 of them are in the West.
Right.
So there's a shortage in the East, and now if Seattle gets a team, it's just going to continue to tip it. So what teams, if they go East, would go? St. Louis Blues would be a team that would get pushed to the East, because they dance at border as well. They're not far from the border.
Yeah, but they're still solidly, like I would say, they're solidly a Midwestern team. Like,
so, but you look at Chicago, St. Louis, Nashville, Minnesota. I think is a little too far northwest, so it wouldn't make that cut.
Okay,
but I think that would be your team selections of Chicago, St. Louis, and Nashville. One of those, I feel, in the next few years may get pushed to the Eastern Conference to balance things out.
Interesting.
So it'd be interesting to see Chicago in the East, and then you wouldn't, because again, we'll get back to the jobs thing, because this does tie in. I trust me on it, and I'll get back to the hot dog thing too. But I say that.
Geeks, come back.
Yeah, come on back.
We started talking the sports ball. We're sorry.
But I think that I wouldn't be surprised if that happened that way. I remember when the Blackhawks were playing in the playoffs, that I had to deal with they're playing against Los Angeles.
Oh, gosh.
And the Los Angeles game starts at like
9 o'clock.
Well, it started at like 8 local.
Oh, right.
But it's 10 o'clock Chicago because we're playing in Los Angeles. And so now it's a Tuesday night at 10 p.m. and the game is starting. And I'm like, well, this is balls. They even made some jokes where, like, on Facebook for what their local radio stations were doing, like, doctor's notes.
Yep.
Just like,
I remember that.
Dear, boss or dear company, I was up watching the Hawks game. Please forget, like, whatever. So it would make sense in that. Now, why I'm able to talk about hockey is that was actually one of my jobs. I worked at the Unite Center where the Hawks and Bulls play. Hawks NHL hockey team and Bulls are the NBA National Basketball Association teams. And in the summer, I worked at what was then Comiskey Park. And then in true Chicago fashion, we sold our name and became U.S. Cellular Field. But as us Southsiders tend to do, we ruin everything. I'll freely admit we have a tendency to ruin everything. You really do. So they're all like, welcome to U.S. Cellular Field. And the Southsiders are like, we're going to call it the Cell. And like they fucking already criminals. I mean, it's the South Side of Chicago. It's got its reputation for a reason. I'm from the South Side. But then even afterwards, that got sold out and became Guaranteed Rate Field. It's like, oh, welcome, we're an insurance company. We're gonna call this Guaranteed Rate Field. And Southsiders went, we're gonna call it the G Spot. So it is now known as the G Spot. All the Southside Chicagoans could finally find the G Spot. Huzzah!
And all female rejoice.
But I worked when it was Comiskey Park, and yeah, I took tickets. I sat people. It was a fun high school gig until you're out in the bleachers when it's 100 degrees in the beginning of August. Just roasting your ass off watching a baseball game for just like, ain't this fun? So I did that, and then the torturous job, because in the wintertime we worked at United Center, and while we got to work the Bulls and Blackhawks games, I got to work some concerts. So I did get to see Rolling Stones twice. I got to see Bruce Springsteen. I got to see Dave Matthews Band twice. I got to see Earth, Wind, and Fire. I got to see R. Kelly. That was a shit show.
Still is.
I mean, he wasn't peeing on people yet, so... No wee-wee for the pretty girls. And then I got to see 24 showings of The Little Mermaid on Ice in 2 weeks. That was kind of the last straw for me. Like, I was done. Now, to go back to the original job at the hot dog stand.
Okay.
For being a Chicagoan, I am not one of those Nazis like, you should never put a ketchup on a hot dog. Sorry, Chicagoans. You could go ahead and fight that all you want. That's fine. If you want to put a ketchup on a hot dog, that's fine. But you do not put ketchup on a Chicago-style hot dog. And the reason for thus
I want to interrupt and explain this to our audience, that this is not my first understanding or my second understanding or even my 14th understanding of this conversation.
This isn't for you.
But there is actually, as I have learned to start eating quote-unquote Chicago hot dogs,
wait.
There is some theory behind this, and I will understand, I will support and understand what actually goes behind the science of this. So, as please continue.
As someone who's been like,
shown the way.
You had a sport pepper, and you went, fucking game changer.
It did. I hate it. And I recently, this week, I ordered that from Portillo's, and I went, mustard and sport pepper, please. And I understood it. No, I didn't.
Okay.
I can't, I can't get my brain around the tomato.
All right, so let's do this. Let's do this. Let's test you, because obviously I can name this.
Okay.
Can you name the ingredients on a proper Chicago-style hot dog? I would say break it down simple, and then work your way up.
Okay, so a simple Chicago hot dog.
No, the classic Chicago-style hot dog.
Classic style hot dog would be...
Start with what you put it on.
A poppy seed bun.
Poppy seed bun, check.
With celery salt.
Now, what are you putting it on?
What do you mean?
So you got your poppy seed hot dog,
all beef hot dog,
and that's the key. It's not like pig's knuckles and duck assholes. Like it is, it is a legitimate pure beef.
Which I was gonna comment because if we have any listeners from Southern Illinois, these are not the corn top hot dogs that are really just bologna in a tube.
The thing about all beef hot dogs, and again, we've gone to food stuff or whatever, and this goes back to the hot dog stand I worked. The thing about like what they use, a legitimate Frankfurter, is it's an all beef dog. It has snap to it. There's a casing on there. It is
not a mushy dog.
No,
it's got a snap.
Chewy, it's got a snap to it.
It's more sausage than it is like.
It's not quite sausage, but
dog.
Yes, it is. Yeah, when you think hot dog, you think OSCAR, like Oscar Mayer weenie. That's like you just feed it to what do I used to have a turtle or fish or something. I used to feed newts. I had newts. You feed them hot dogs. Right? It was just weird. Anyway. So it's just like crap, gross hot dogs. But no, these are like legitimate hot dogs that are meaty, they're chewy, you have to boil the hell out of them. Like they're really, really good hot dogs. They're all beef hot dogs.
Okay.
I didn't say what part of the beef, but it's all beef hot dogs. So yeah, so you have your poppy seed bun and an all beef hot dog.
Celery salt?
That's last.
Okay. Well,
you're correct. Though.
Okay. Celery salt, onion.
Yes.
Mustard.
Yes.
Sport peppers.
Mm-hmm.
Bright nuclear has to be like made from the nuclear sun of Hiroshima.
Whoa.
Relish.
Yeah, it is, and it's sweet relish, not dill relish.
Right. Sweet relish, not dill relish. Bright nuclear green. Tomato slices or wedges.
Yeah, tomato slices or wedges, generally speaking.
And then here's the kicker, and I don't understand it. It tastes good, but it's hard to like to get it into your mouth. It's hard.
Diggity.
But
Keep going.
The full pickle wedge.
There's a pickle spear.
But that is essentially
and then your sport pepper.
Yeah, and your sport pepper. It's essentially a salad on a beef
more or less
taco.
Now, well, we're gonna get into the argument of what is a taco and
what is a sandwich.
What is a sandwich?
Technically, a sandwich is a taco.
A tostada is an open face sandwich. Like, that's not even getting into that. So while I argue for Chicago style hot dogs, here's the thing about it. Why you don't put ketchup on it is simply because if you look at the ingredients that are on a Chicago-style hot dog, between the mustard and the relish, the tomato, which is kind of a reason to not put ketchup anyway, because you already have a unsweetened ketchup, which is tomato, the celery salt, the dog itself, all of these ingredients are tart. They're vinegar-based.
Tart and or acidic.
They're acidic. They're vinegar-based. They get you right in the right under the jawline. They get that Sour Patch Kids. You want to make like faces, and that's what it's supposed to do. So adding a ketchup to that, A, makes it mushy, and B, does not like go hand in hand, does not jive well with these other ingredients that are very tart. Ketchup in of itself generally is sweet. It's a sweeter red paste, tomato paste for the most part. That, yeah, it's great on fries. It's good on a regular hot dog, or if you're one of those mutants that put it in mac and cheese or on eggs, go for it.
Eggs thing I never understood.
My family does it. They love scrambled eggs and just with the ketchup, and you're like, oh, jeez. So all of those ingredients do not jive well with ketchup. So that is where my purity goes. I don't care if you want to put ketchup on a hot dog. You do you. I'm a Chicagoan. If any opportunity, I will try to make a Chicago-style hot dog with whatever ingredients I have. I've done the poor man Chicago style where I've got like a plain bun, a Vienna beef hot dog, some mustard that hasn't been shaken very well, so you get that like runny shit at the beginning. And you're just like, I guess I'm eating it. The bottom scrapings of some relish, a red onion because I'm all out of white onion, and then maybe a pickle or a peppercini or whatever I could find for some sort of vinegar heat. And then I always have celery salt in my pantry. So it's just, that's where, so if anything, if I could teach anybody here at Grey Muzzle Geekery is
how to make a proper Chicago dog.
Chicago style dog. It has nothing to do with the whole ketchup war. Oh, ketchup on a hot dog. No. They're very sausage-like, so you generally don't add ketchup to anyway. But all of the ingredients on a proper Chicago style hot dog do not go well with ketchup because ketchup's too sweet for what's on there. Between the pickle and the sport peppers and everything else, the sweetness of ketchup just does not complement those flavors. So all those people who want to sit there like, you don't put ketchup on a hot dog. Look, like, you do whatever the hell you want. What Babbage was saying earlier, Benjamin Babbage. Shout out to those guys. Like, they're like, hey, you drink whiskey the way you want. You eat hot dogs the way you do. But you can't throw ketchup on it and be like, this is Chicago style hot dog. No, it's not.
So maybe at another episode, I'll go on a tangent of how actual good state fair corn dogs are made, and then we can have a conversation.
I'm down with it. Oh man, well, state fairs deep fry everything. So
yeah, but there's good corn dogs, and then there's not so.
We'll have to make a note of that because we were trying to get to jobs in like 4 weeks ago, and we're just now getting to it. So yeah, I worked at a hot dog stand.
Okay.
And while I described what was on a Chicago style hot dog, these people, for whatever reason, wanted to put lettuce on it and call it a garden dog. So now you basically have like taco lettuce, like that finely shredded nonsense, on a hot dog with all the previous ingredients.
Gross.
So it's wet and mushy and it's just not good. And I got into a little trouble because I'm like, well, if they ask for a hot dog, I'm not putting lettuce on. I will make the hot dog, look at them, shake my head no, and say, do you want lettuce on this? If they say yes, I hand them the hot dog and throw the lettuce at them. Leave. But unfortunately for me, on my first day there, I'm like, okay. And they're like, all right. The manager was like, we're going to give you, you're working with, I can't remember the guy's name, like Tito or something like that. And he was a very nice gentleman who had just gotten out of prison and had found Jesus.
Okay.
And more importantly, he was very excited
that he had found Jesus.
To tell me that he had found Jesus. And was also very curious if I had found Jesus. And if a former prison inmate asks you if you have found Jesus,
the answer is
you say, yes, sir, I am all full. Thank you very much. Needless to say, after a 6-hour shift of talking to Jesus is my Savior, Jesus, 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 have you found Jesus? I quit. I did not get a paycheck. I did, however, take like 3 beef sandwiches and some of their home-style french fries, which, if I may say, they straight up took the potato in the back, ran it through the thing, dumped it into a bucket, dried them off the bucket, deep fried them once for about 30 seconds, pulled them out, let them sit in a basket with like a little light, oil on them, and then when they got ordered, drop them in again. They were like sort of double fried, but not really, and some of the best goddamn. Also, they're showered with kosher salt.
Right.
None of this like, here's your iodinized table salt. Like, no. Like legit big old hunkin' chunks of kosher salt. So it was with the skin still on and everything else. Oh, so good. So yeah, that was one of my shortest day jobs of like, I'm here, 6-hour shift, and deuces.
I would probably say my most interesting career that I've had, because it spanned a couple of different types of collection jobs, was as a bill collector. I worked for 2 companies that worked for purchasing debt off of bigger companies, so it was stuff that no one should have to pay.
Right.
But that was part of the
scam of it.
I don't want to say scam, but it was part of the curse and enjoyment of it, is being able to have a silver tongue enough to talk somebody into paying something that they really have no obligation to pay. But just if you could appeal to the goodness of them being upstanding citizens. And, well, you really owe this debt. Why don't we work together to figure out how you can put your conscience at peace?
Vampire.
And
has those skills that you learned from that job translated to any tabletop or LARPing scenarios?
Oh, of course. I will use it in a resume type of situation anytime. If I can talk somebody to paying a bill that they don't have to pay,
I mean, it's a
I can
job,
sell it. I might as well be selling ice to Eskimos. Like, it's the equivalent. It's the modern day equivalent of...
They're native Canadians. Calm down, dude.
I can get... I would like to find, and it's always, if anybody has worked in that kind of industry that has that sale of... hit them with a whiff 'em. And what that stands for is hit them with something that what's in it for them or what's in it for me. So if you can appeal to that mindset of what's in it for them, you can have a conversation with anybody, and you may not even be trying to come off as somebody that's selling something to them, but it's still a mentality of getting somebody to talk about what's in the conversation to them or what's important to them is golden. It taught me how to be able to...
Snake oil salesman. You snake oil salesman. Hey, you want your conscience to feel better? Let's build a monorail. Monorail. Uh-huh. And then, you had any scary jobs or anything that was like...
The only thing I ever came into a bad situation with was, and it's only escalated by yours, but I happened to be a shift manager for Papa John's for a very long time. It was my first job.
You definitely gone to college.
It was my first job. I started out as a phone, I say phone quote unquote girl, but it was 2 or 3 girls that would take all the orders.
Are you going to sell phone girl bathwater?
We will talk about that later.
Okay.
So we would take the orders, and I just evolved and escalated every time I got an opportunity to learn another skill on the job. And I started out as phone girl, then I became a dough slapper, then I became a topper, then I became a
wait. We're still talking about the same thing, right?
Yes.
I'm a phone girl, a phone girl, dough slapper, and a topper. Like, I mean...
and then ended up being a shift manager by the time I was 18.
We call them mistresses nowadays.
Yeah.
Remember, it's both a job description and an honorific, depending how you use it.
And also, if it's after past midnight.
Sure.
So I ended up becoming a shift manager, and I remember coming back into work after closing, I think, that Saturday night at 2 a.m. and coming in at 9 a.m. on Sunday to my store had been essentially like broken into and rummaged.
Oh, jeez.
Burglarized. And the phone lines were cut. So I remember having to like call my general manager on my cell phone and be like, "Hey, I need you to come handle this."
An inside job or not, if you knew all the lines.
It happened to be the street that I worked on, where the franchise was. They had hit a couple of different restaurants,
Sure.
It was an interesting, and they still wanted me to like stay and take orders through my cell phone because they could route the number through my cell phone. It was a shit
show.
But you, of course, had me trumped.
I'm not proud to be trump you on this. I had just finished high school, and I was done with my stint doing ticket taking and ushering people at these sporting arenas, which goes back to the question I asked you. It's definitely helped me in terms of my geekdom and my geektitude, and especially with LARPing, live action role playing stuff, of being around 10, 20, 30,000 people at a time, potentially drunk and violent people. Like, again, you talk about Red Wings and Blackhawks, like hockey rivalry. It was bad in the 90s. They fought. Like, just straight up in the stands, and you just stood back
like crosstown classic style.
Oh, Cubs and Sox fought all the time. And I worked those games. I was there and just kind of was shift manager, crowd manager, and just ticket taker at first, and counting tickets and ushering people. And remember, we took tickets in the old way, where we actually had to like bend it and rip the piece off, the stub off, because we didn't have the scanners. Mm-hmm. You just didn't walk by and beep, beep, all right, next. Or you even show your phone out. You didn't even have like a ticket, because for a while you had like a physical ticket. Now you just show your phone to scan it and you're good.
Right.
No, I mean, we had tickets. We had to bend it and
Rip
try
it,
to tear it,
put it in
and
the box.
try to be nice about it. And some people like who'd collect tickets would be like, "Can you tear it nicely?" Because you don't want to. Because usually just rip it and go. But some people
They're gonna put it in a shadow box.
A shadow box is some sort of souvenir thing. So like, can you rip it nicely? Like, okay, so you bend it very carefully and like down the perforator, just and like, I here you go. And you hand it like, thank you very much. Like, Jesus, fuck, Grandma, get out of here. So while all that, after I did all that stuff, I was a third key holder, assistant manager, whatever, for a FuncoLand, video games, and all that stuff. And I was training a new employee. It was her first day. And it was like, we close at 9 and it's 8:30 and I'm starting to close things up early. It's already empty. The store's empty. Nobody's there. I'm like, I'm going to start locking things up. And I'm not going to lock the door, but I'm going to give the impression of,
hey, we're no
pretty much
open.
done. I
Yeah.
said, yeah, we're pretty much done. I'm going to start counting shit, get things done. As I'm getting things ready, two gentlemen I hate using the term gentlemen because they weren't very gentle. Walked in, one approached her, one approached me, held gunpoints to her head, and asked me to empty the register and had her empty her purse. She was just 16. It is a definitely defining moment in my life where I emptied the register. I ended up giving them, from behind, they took, this may date me a little bit here, they took 2 PlayStation 2s.
Which, honestly, probably was more than what was in the register anyway.
Sure. And 3 Nintendo 64s.
Holy crap.
And then whatever games that they could scrounge on top of the $400, $500 in the register.
Right.
I may have lied to them, which is the first risk of saying that I didn't have the safe information. Because, like, I pop the safe. I'm like, I can't. My manager shows up at 9 o'clock to go through the safe. Like, oh, fuck. Well, just empty the register. And we clean out the register every $500. So I took that. Now, what got scary was they wanted to leave, but not from the front door. So the both of them took me into the back room to open up the door. And I'm like, okay, I may die back here. Like, I literally had the thought of, I may very well get shot back here as they escape. So I need to just play it cool. I'm like, hey, it's like, so the only thing that came to my mind is the alarm is going to sound as soon as I open this back door. So you need to get out as soon as I open it. Cops will be on their way. And they're like, they kind of looked at me. And so I popped the door. Was that
the truth?
Or? No, not at all.
Oh, shit.
So I popped the door and opened it and they fled out. And as soon as they did, I closed it and barred it back up. Our store didn't have alarms. Our store didn't have security cameras. Our store did not have any of that. This is like is like early 2000s. This is 2000 of like April, May, June. Yeah. So I was 17 still at the time. So more or less called a bluff to like, I don't want them thinking. I don't want them hanging around. And
you
like,
want to go off of their flight or fight.
I'm going, hey, you guys need to go. Cops are going to be on their way as soon as I open this door. And they pieced. I closed the door behind me and locked it. I was like, holy fuck. Ran around to the front, locked the door, closed the security gates, called 911, called my manager, and that was the end of my night. And I will still never forget to this day that poor girl crying her eyes out, saying that she took the job just so she could buy a new purse. And now even her old purse was stolen.
Oh my gosh.
And that has haunted me to this day, 20 years later almost, and it's still like in my head. I still remember that night.
Of course.
Now, I quit even though I didn't want to. I didn't want to quit. My dad, who, again, police officer for 30-something, 33 years, was like, you need to quit that job. I did quit. 2 days after I quit, the store got robbed again.
Wow.
So, I mean, that would have been me because it was another, early shift. And in fact, the manager got jumped in the alley because it was an inside job, too. They knew that what time we took our money to the bank. So our manager was walking to the bank, and there's an area where you have to walk past the building, and, like, there's an alley that's there, and it's, like, behind, like, a pizza parlor, sort of. Guy jumped out and maced the manager.
And just took it.
Just sprayed him, not like medieval weaponry mace, but like pepper sprayed him in the face. Hey, we have listeners that be like, mace? These guys are hardcore. Like pepper sprayed him in the face and then took the previous night's closings and ran off. So I had to go in and do like a like 5 guys were lined up, and I had to identify witnesses or identify the perpetrators, and like
wow.
I was in a legitimate police lineup. I had to pick out the guys. Like I identified 2 of the 3 that were total, because one was a driver that got away, and then the other 2 were actually doing it, and I was able to identify 2 of 3. Like it was kind of nuts, man. It was,
and being 17
18 years old. Yeah, I was just like, is this what life is about? This kind of sucks. So that was that's so for all you guys, we're very interested to hear, and write us in at greymuzzlegeekery@gmail.com if you want to leave us on Twitter at greymuzzlegeek, or you could poke us at on our Instagram, or right up on our Facebook at Grey Muzzle Geekery. Let us know a story that you guys may have encountered, or some sort of bullshit job story, and we'll read it on air. We know that
we have some interesting listeners with some interesting back histories.
We have some interesting listeners with interesting stories, and for any of the younger listeners that are out there that know that there are better jobs in the horizon, and we too may have been dealing with unfortunate circumstances and situations. We are at 40-something minutes. However, there is another topic that kind of piqued your interest over the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, because you had a weekend with some friends, and I did manage to hit another fur bowl.
Yeah.
Which was interesting, because I didn't bowl, because I'm not a bowler. And you weren't there to bowl with me. And by bowl with me, I mean you handed me a ball, you handed me some shoes. You said,
okay, made it work.
Here you go, big boy. You could do it now. And I'm like, yay! Like 2 hand down the lane. And I'm waiting for the bumpers to come up. And like, because you're a bowler. I am totally not. So I went alone. And through that, I just put on my suit and took some pictures and got to kind of hang out and just be a goof. It was still worth, it was a couple dollars to
hang out
there, and I still ended up getting a Long Island fishbowl from the bar that was there, which did a great job, because I only needed 1 fishbowl, and I also knew I was driving that night, so I only did the 1, and I drank it within 45 minutes. And I was tipsy for like an hour. It was awesome. But you kind of was talking about our fandoms, or at least the age of fandoms. Go ahead and go with this topic. I'm very curious where you want to expound on it.
So what was the majority of the topic stemmed from the unfortunate, I shouldn't say unfortunate, but it is a consequence of a lot of our current players being of the age of 30, 40, late 20s.
So what you're trying to spell out, see that the bourbon's kicked in a little bit.
No. I was getting there, but essentially aging out of your hobbies.
So
and
any hobby?
It did specifically go into LARPing, because there was a time period that happened, at least for me specifically, and I'm sure some of our listeners could commiserate, where it was the dirty secret you didn't talk about. You weren't somebody that would talk about openly LARPing. And I think a consequence of that, or a systemic problem from it, is that we have a age gap so heavily from our LARPing communities now that the average age group of most of the LARPs that I go to, whether it be Alliance, whether it be Nero, whether it be Vampire, or other older stemming or older long-lasting LARPs, are, where are the young people? Where are your 17 to 20-year-olds?
Well, and this is the one we kind of talked a little bit. I brought up the point of we are missing the opportunity of having that, as you said, 17. So you're old enough to drive.
Right.
You got 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I don't put 21 in just because at that point it makes sense for people to be like, yeah, I'm out at the bar, or I'm out at the club when I'm 21 and I'm doing things. So where are that old enough to drive but too young to drink crowd that we should be bringing, or at least not so much focusing, but as a prime target to be like, hey, you want to be out and do a thing. You're going to be in an environment where your parents are going to be okay with, for the most part. Especially nowadays, there's a much bigger
You always
acceptance.
have your cell phone. You most of the time you're not completely 100% out of range. You still have some signal.
Well, and you're also not worshiping demons in the woods. Like, that stigma's kind of gone. I mean, nobody's sitting there thinking, oh, Dungeons & Dragons is a demon worshiping game. Like, even my parents know what D&D is and what Game of Thrones and these concepts of fantasy.
Right.
They understand that. So you could see, and even to a point, like, our age have kids that are in that age group now of, you know, a 40-year-old with a 16, 17, 18-year-old. Like, that's...
Hey, I want to go try this. Oh, okay.
Oh, I used to do this, so
yeah,
I know about this.
I know about this. Or, hey, your weird Uncle Kevin does it.
Right. Or, yeah, or I've... Oh, you mean it's like this Game of Thrones, or it's like this Watchmen, or it's like these other shows, or Lord of the Rings type? Or they have... There's a point of reference.
Right.
There's now a point of reference that you did not have before. So it's easier to grab onto, and it's widely known of these games. So where are those players? What is going on? And I do agree that you hit that thing of, for a long time, it was that dirty little secret. I grew up where you told your boss that you were camping for the weekend.
Right.
You told your neighbors that you needed to borrow a sleeping bag because you're camping, or you're staying at a friend's house.
I once told a coworker that found a packet, what we use as essentially what we throw
for
to
spells. Sure.
I told a coworker once that I used those because I was supposed to be a youth camper or youth leader at a 4-H camp, that we would throw those as games at kids. Like
Helping
hot potato.
kids?
Like hot potato.
Sit down!
I then later, of course, told her everything. But it was weird for them to come stumbling across this packet full of a fabric full of birdseed and go, what is this for?
I admittedly told most of my friends about it, and my parents had an idea about it. And I was dancing that double whammy because I also played a fox character. I basically played a furry at a LARP.
Right.
Which is like the bottom tier of geekdom. Like, you have like Trekkies, and then you have like people who write Trekkie fanfic. And then
I just like wearing weird clothes in the woods.
Well, there's like, you have Trekkies. Then you have like people who do Trekkie fanfic. Then you have like people who do Trekkie fanfic with furries. And then you have just like just furries. So like there's like this whole hierarchy of geekitude and nerddom and stuff. But so I danced that line, obviously. I was a LARPer, which is a geeky thing. I was a closeted furry for the most part. I still am to a degree, but obviously having a podcast, not so closeted anymore. But it was one of those, I was able to hide behind this is a character, I'm playing this character, he's a fox. And, if you've seen Robin Hood, you get an idea. Disney's Robin Hood, not Kevin Costner, calm down. So you're able to play that role out, but I still could not just easily explain at least like if you're playing a human or an elf or a dwarf, you could still get away with, I put some ears on and I'm doing this, or there's an easier point of reference to be an elf or to be a dwarf or to be a human in these games compared to being an animal character, or I'm thinking of some of the other characters, an orc, an ogre,
gypsy,
or we don't use that term no more,
or
Solari.
A nomadic group of individuals.
So well, even then you're still able to get away with that with like, I'm a belly dancer at the Ren Fair or something like that. You're able to get away with tangentially talking those topics. So going back to the original point, why do you think, like, are we to blame? Have we been a bad generation for growth of LARPing or for the growth of these games, while all around us the topic itself is expanding? The topic of D&D and Mercer running Critical Role and all these other things that make it very clear and very open. As Stranger Things Season 3 just came out. Things that very directly tie to Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games, yet we see a little bit of a decline in some of the games, at least in the Midwest. I can't speak outside of there. I can't even speak for European stuff, because again, I make the joke of it's pretty easy to European LARP when you're surrounded by actual fucking castles. Like, in the United States, like, oh yeah, we're LARPing, and out there they're like, oh no, we're doing history, like with dragons. Oh yeah, there's fucking dragons. Like, The Scots have unicorns as their freaking official animal, for Christ's sake.
So I will, because I've lived it and I came from this game, and the people that played it before me that got me into it were 16, 17, 18-year-olds that were going on their weekends, and mom and dad had to give them the okay to cross state lines, and they were gone all weekend from, middle of Friday afternoon after school got out all the way to, Sunday evening, 6 or 7 o'clock. They'd roll in front to home, all to go, turn around and go back to school that following day. I feel like, yes, we did ourselves a disservice for a long time. And I'm talking like 10, 11 years worth of hiding it, 7 or 8 years worth of hiding it, that there is a causality to that of we just lost an entire generation of people. Unless we had younger brothers and sisters that we could get into it, there just tend to have been a loss of a age group that are your early 30s, your late 20s, that just don't know about it, and they're too old to get into the younger geekdom now.
I would even say earlier than that, your mid to early 20s seem to be the missing spot. And I made the joke of, is everybody just busy playing Fortnite? Is everybody just busy playing these kind of games, or different kind of LARPs? Where airsoft is a form of LARPing. Right. That's kind of gained some popularity. It gained popularity for a bit, kind of not plateaued, but it's still accessible. It's just became kind of more a specific niche, so to speak. Because you can't say the barrier for entry is terribly high, but it's still a couple $100 just to start getting stuff. You have a variety of LARPs that are coming out with their own flair on things. So you do ask the question of, are you dealing with oversaturation?
Oh, your homebrews.
Or the homebrews of games that should be one thing, but there are so many variants or something else that it turns into, hey, we're all playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but if you go to Tommy's house, every elf gets a magic sword, and if you go to Steve's house and his bag of spiders, everybody gets a bag of spiders at Steve's house. And if you go to Mike's house,
fucking spiders.
There's a story behind it, and that's why. It's a good LARP story we'll have to share later on what got me into character, realistically. But if you go to Mike's house, and Mike has every dwarf gets, plus abilities against certain things, then it's not the same game anymore. You're playing with a lot of varieties and a lot of variants that change the game in that level. So are you seeing that on a grander scale with some of the games? And I'm going to call out for what it is. I'm going to call out Nero International having issues lately with their consistency and their ability to maintain and adhere to the current game mechanics and the current game rules, where they do deviate and have their own variants and have their own abilities and have their own skills. And it makes sense that they want to flavor up and spice the game up. But if you have a new player or a traveling player, then you're going to get hit with an ability, or you're going to get hit with something where I'm going to say some words at you, and the flow of the game completely stops dead in its tracks because you're staring at me like I just have 3 goddamn heads going, what is that? That's not even an ability. What are you talking? I read the rule book front to back. That is not in the rule book. Oh, this is what we're doing here. Like, well, you're not playing the game right. Like, I could walk away now because you're making nonsense. So, I call them out because I've seen it a lot, and it's realistically one of the reasons why I pulled back from playing that a little bit, because it was getting ludicrous. It was getting ridiculous. And again, I will tout Alliance on this one, where they've released their new rule system, and because it's a new precious baby, everybody's being ginger with it because they want to see where it goes. They want to see what they can do with it before they start to push.
Before they start to break it.
Push and break it. Because I am a fan of breaking rules too, in terms of let's push a system and see how we can improve it, see where the flaws are, see what can be abused. I'm a gamer. I like to see those limits. So it's going to take a little bit for this new rule system. That said, how do we get back to getting newer, younger players to come back and play the game? Advertising still is out there. There's a lot more social media that's out there. to be able to do that, much like what we're doing here at Grey Muzzle Geekery. We're utilizing a variety of social media to do it. That said, it's not easy. Being on top of Twitter, which is you need to respond now.
Right.
Like, if you don't respond...
You need to be current.
You need to be absolutely current. And if you're more than a couple hours behind or a couple hours off peak hours, then you're going to miss an opportunity, or you're just going to be buried in somebody's timeline where it's just like, blip, and it's gone. Instagram we've been using a little bit and trying to use that to stir conversations, to stir other podcasts that are out there, to promote from within, to see if we can get some cross listeners, to get, again, we advocate other other shows, other companies, other things than ours. Some of our friends, The Dragget Show, Loaded Dice Adventures, How to Improve Your Day on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Like, all these groups could benefit from each other by doing that. So if anything, that's the one advantage we have now that we didn't have back then, even 10 years ago. We didn't have that level of interconnectivity to be able to advertise and to, go within groups, even different games, to promote, hey, you're into post-apocalyptic LARP, so how about a medieval LARP? Or, again, we had a guy that was from a post-apocalyptic LARP, and he likes it, but then tried the Alliance system and was like, okay, this has a very different feel, not only thematically,
right,
but it also has a different rule set and a different game set that allows me to be more physical. It allows me to test my actual combat skills and not just say a number or say abilities. I shoot you, okay, done, bang, bang, pew, you're dead. Like, I actually have to hit you. I mean, at Dystopia Rising is where I do it. You could just scream out, called shot from a distance, and they take the damage. You're dancing over here. Say it.
No, it's okay. Move on.
So it's little abilities like that they change the game. So we are to blame to a degree for not promoting and keeping it as a dirty little secret. I definitely did the same thing. If it's my dirty little secret, I'm going camping, or I'm going to a friend's, or I'm going to hang out. Didn't tell a lot of friends, didn't really help push and promote the game, didn't invite my other friends to come and play with me. And now that we're a little bit older, we're looking back going, hey, we missed an opportunity. Let's get more people to show, because it's more fun to play these games, especially when they're solid, consistent rules that everybody could understand and pretty balanced, so that everybody feels that they have a part to play in the story. Be it post-apocalyptic, medieval fantasy, vampire, werewolf, all these other games, there's a larger story to tell and be told. That's the magic of it. That's the beauty of it. So how else do we get those players? How do we get those listeners? How do we get those people to share interests and share ideas? And so my theory on it is improving, and I don't know how, else we would already have like 5 million listeners. Sorry. How do you improve those abilities, and how do you improve those available resources to be able to reach out to the millions of people? Again, Chicagoland area, and I'm going to go a big swath, greater Chicagoland area, 4-hour drive in any direction. You're looking at 9 million people population. How do we get more people out to try these games, to try X hobby or Y hobby? Or is it the curse of the millennial where they just don't have enough money to go, oh, you mean I'm going to go put some makeup on, hit you with foam, and pretend I'm an elf? Like, I'm a poor peasant for
fair
for 3 days? I do that in real life.
That's a very good point.
So, I hate doing the whole, like, blame the millennials, or it's the millennials' fault, because I'm an elder millennial, too.
Elder millennial.
But
that'll be your secrets?
I mean, my secrets is bourbon. That's my secret.
Yep.
How about you?
Double
bourbon?
Sure.
Double shot of bourbon. We'll have to do an alcohol episode.
I agree. I feel like that'll be a good call.
I want to, ideally.
I mean, we do have a page on our Discord called Dust on the Bottle.
Yeah,
it's definitely a very popular page.
And we get all sorts of fun pictures and everything else. And we also encourage people to have their own booze and their stuff. I do have a brewery that is nearby. again, shout out to our friends over at Black Horizon Brewery, who makes some. I really need to go get me some more of that Stealing Sunshine.
Stealing Sunshine.
Oh, it's so good. I would like to go there and do an episode, like bring the equipment there and even talk to the guy a little bit. Maybe we'll
That could be fun.
maybe have a little conversation with Mr. St. Clair himself. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And yeah, so we got some things planned actually, and this is a good time to kind of maybe expound on some of these plans. So what we're thinking of doing, thanks to the magic of Patreon, we're going to set a number in the near future where we want to start doing some game reviews. But with those game reviews, we want to raffle off, or rather auction off, not raffle, there's no money involved, just if you're a Patreon listener and you're a Patreon member, go to Patreon/Grey Muzzle Geekery. We will do a review of a game, and then we will just randomly draw a member to win that game, and we will send it to you for being a Patreon. And we're gonna get a set. We haven't quite agreed on the dollar amount of our monthly goal, but once we kind of hammer out the detail on what is feasible for us to be able to purchase a game and ship it out, and etc., that is one of the plans that's on the pipeline, is to have a board game, have you guys win a board game that we review once a month. So 12 a year sounds pretty legit. Maybe Christmas time we'll do 2 as a special Christmas bonus. We are also talking about doing a music episode. I know, not like Buffy the Vampire Slayer where we're going to like do a musical.
Listen, that was one of the best episodes ever.
We're not going to do a podcast where we're only singing.
No, I won't do that to people.
You are not going to sing. Leaving me hanging. But I say that because I had recently received my album, vinyl, of Spread Thy Wings by Foxes and Peppers. Now, this is a collaborative effort, by Foxamore and Pepper Coyote, who made the group Foxes and Peppers, but they are furries, sure, but they're musicians, and they are talented musicians. And they have made an album that kickstarted over $32,000 to just straight up fund the album themselves. No dealing with other producers and other bullshit. Hey, we have an album. It was kickstarted by our fans, and it's out there.
Recorded legitimately with a choir and professional musicians.
Yeah, recorded in Nashville.
So great.
Yeah. So what we're thinking of doing, we want to talk about, and that'll probably be another conversation soon, of what's it like to be in a fandom or community, either be it furries, be it LARPers, be it Rennies, to be a creator and a consumer. So what is it to be a consumer, to be a creator? How do you keep these fandoms and these communities going? And then go into breaking down that album. We have permission, and we've talked to their producer or their manager about talking about this album, some of our favorite songs, being able to play you guys little clips. We'll give you guys all the information on it. And yeah, that'll be an episode to come in the near future about Spread Thy Wings with Foxes and Peppers. This album came out back in December, and the vinyls are finally pressed, and I have received mine earlier this week, and I am excited to talk about it. And more importantly, I'm excited to share it too. It's definitely got that 90s They Might Be Giants / Bare Naked Ladies / like there's a little bit more classical because Foxamore is...
A couple of, little harder songs, like maybe a little Tool or...
Oh, I wouldn't say Tool. Were you thinking Stay As You Are?
Yeah.
It's got like that post-80s, like not hard rock. Oh, that's a weird...
Like maybe a little grunge?
Sort of grunge-ish. Yeah, like maybe late 80s grunge type thing.
Yeah.
Not quite punk, but getting into it. But then they immediately turn around and go to almost like show to-y. And like what they got Christian rock with All Rise. Like,
yeah.
So we'll talk about these. We'll talk about all this later. I don't want to spoil it all on this.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert. But we have some things in the pipeline. Don't worry. We got some stickers that are going to be coming out soon. We're going to try to get some pins done for our Patreon listeners. And again, we appreciate everybody. We'll do a shout out next week, in fact, because it'll be the beginning of the month. So we'll do a proper shout out to all our Patreon supporters. But we do invite you guys to give us $1 and give us your monies. Share with us. Sharing
Keep our lights on.
Keep our lights on. I'm poor. I'm just a poor boy from a poor family.
Even to just stop him from singing.
Yeah, I will just sing all episode if we don't get another Patreon listener. But, and obviously you go to Patreon/Grey Muzzle Geekery. And again, we understand if you can't, but if you can, throw $1 away. Fantastic. We can continue to bring these episodes from us to your ear brains, your ear balls, to your ear lobes, to your
just stop
synapses of auditory combobulation.
Dusty Red.
Yes.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
And as always, we are all geeks. To be otherwise may very well mean to live without passion. Good night.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Grey Muzzle Geekery with Dusty Red and Dusty White.
You can support our continued geekery at our Patreon website, patreon.com/Grey Muzzle Geekery. Be sure to check back often as we start to add geek cred levels.
You can send your questions and comments to us at greymuzzlegeekery@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at Grey Muzzle Geek.
We can be found on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and Buzzsprout.
And a special thank you to Pepper Coyote for our intro theme. And if you like what you heard, you can find more of his stuff on Spotify, Patreon, or directly from his Bandcamp page.